Good morning, precious beings. I have been tapping into some of you who have been observing the work that I share and myself and my journey. And I just am just so amazed at what incredible hearts are tapping in to this channel. So I just wanted to thank you for your presence, first of all. And for those of you who reached out and sent messages about my dad, and I'm just so grateful. And I'm feeling enormously grateful right now for my godchildren, who are little light beams, who have been lifting my spirits at this time, and their mum, and my beautiful community here that I'm getting to know in this eco village of hermits. We come together on Tuesdays to do Qigong, my beautiful Qigong class, and my animals and the ancestors on this land of the Bundjalung people, the Widjabul Waibul people of the Bundjalung. This is the land that I'm speaking from. So I just give my greatest honor and respect to the custodians of this land, past, present, and emerging. And yeah, just for all of you who are here. So I'm feeling a little bit delicate because I have been moving through a lot with what's been going on, and how I practice what I preach. So everything that I tell you, I live it. And that's how I ended up totally on my own manifesting this property, manifesting a way to purchase, a $400,000 plus property with no, what do they call it? Not a lot of principal, so not a lot of cash to put on it. Just in full trust, I kind of remember the story of Siddhartha, if those of you know, who he was going on a journey, and he went on the train and he said, I don't have anything, I don't have money, I don't have food, and he just got this guidance to trust and that the journey would unfold. And that's sort of been my life, because my brain is a bit different. I've been diagnosed with a few different things: dyslexia, ADHD, as I mentioned before, epilepsy, and I don't think in a linear way. And so to follow the scripts of how people accumulate property in the normal way, I don't do that. So I sort of I do my energetic work. I get myself coherent with the outcome in the field of what I want, and then I just jump into that reality. Excuse me, mister. I'm trying to... So I jumped into this reality, and I basically had just enough to get by. So unexpected things like, severe issues that are affecting and contaminating the water, or unexpected needs to go on international trips and, go to Europe and all that. That's not anything that I factored in to just my basic survival here. So that brought up, so this is the point of what I'm sharing today, is how to manage and how to work through fear when you're stepping into the unknown, when you don't have a safety net, when you don't have like some family member or partner who seems like they have their ish together and you can just ask them for guidance and they can sort things out for you. I don't have any of that. My dad was sort of like that until he started getting, dementia, and now he can't even remember what we said to each other 5 minutes ago. So, I use my biogeometry tools. We've got the brain stands there, which I'm using to try and help me with some tax requirements for being a multinational in South Africa. And if any of you know South Africa, man, it's it's not easy navigating their tax systems. My mother died, and she left a very small bit of inheritance that I put into a cottage there when my dad was saying he wanted to retire there so we could live together. Then he decided he didn't, and then it was too dangerous for me, and I just left, and I got a job here in Australia, thankfully, which allowed me to migrate back to Australia after I'd been gone for almost 2 years. And, I'm really grateful for that job. I was working as a mental health clinician, and that's also what helped me get this loan. But I purchased this house with anticipation that I was going to sell that property in South Africa, and that's been harder than I suspected, and I still haven't been able to bring those funds over. There's a lot of complications, and there's also a lot of possibilities of being scammed and losing everything when you're working with South Africa just on your own. I just have to trust that the people that I've called in have integrity and have good hearts, and will be working in ethical ways with the selling of my property. The buyer, the agent, the conveyancer, because I had an experience dealing with conveyancers and agents that were not very ethical, and I lost a lot. So I've had a lot of experiences. So the point of what I'm saying, I don't want to ramble too much, but is how do you work with keeping yourself in a frequency that is resonant with the timeline that you want to be on, with your quantum jump that you may have just made when fear comes in. Because fear can be very destabilizing. It can regress you back to your previous survival mechanisms, back to even like when you were pre-verbal, when you were a toddler. People who have diagnosed personality disorders like borderline personality disorder or narcissism, oftentimes they had some sort of serious wounding to their identity or their self or their sense of security when they were really, really young. And when they get triggered by the thought of rejection or abandonment, or even judgment, some of them, or criticism, they can regress back to behaviors that don't even make rational sense to them. It just comes in the body, and they start acting in ways, and they put out a field, and they sabotage things. People with borderline sabotage a lot of relationships. So it's a very, very important thing to find out how to manage fear when it triggers you, and when it triggers all of those unconscious behaviors. And I definitely was going into some of them. I have generational war trauma. I'm a first child out of war. So my father his family was captive with the Nazis. The reason my mum was born was because her 13 and 14-year-old brothers were killed with a war mine that they stepped on. So, it's strong in me, the survival fear, and, thinking to leave here and have to deal with my dad and maybe stay there. I could lose the house, and this is how I can survive in the world. This is how I can do the work that I can do. And I'm not someone who, I've gotten so energetically sensitive, and I'm so open now that, I don't know how I would fare having to get into a very negative, dense reality that is not aligned with what I've created. I don't know if that's making sense, but it just brought up a lot of fear, and I was going through that. And I literally, if somebody was looking at me on the outside yesterday, they would just see me sitting on my deck in stillness most of the day, and then sitting on my couch in stillness, and not tending to any of my chores or things that I had to do, because it may have just looked like I was just sitting, I was having some sort of episode, but what I was doing is I was actually tapping into the things that were triggered in me were anger, a feeling of injustice, and fear. And so when I was sitting in that, I was using, breath work, and I will do a demo on a very simple breath that is very similar to quantum breathing, called box breathing, fourfold breath. And I'll talk about the esoteric and occult and mystical principles behind that. But I was sitting and I was breathing into them, and it was extremely challenging because of the knowledge that I have. I know that when I go out of alignment with what I am calling in, my field is really, really strong, and I can magnetize things very, very quickly. So I manifest very quickly, and my field is very strong. So when I go out of alignment, I can call in some pretty uncomfortable situations and things like that, accidents and things like that. So that was also stressing me, is like, okay, so I'm going into fear. I'm having some real, and this is my dad who is in the state. And so, you're linked, whether you have a good or bad relationship with a parent, with your father, you are linked to them. So when there's stuff going on with them, you can feel it. If you're sensitive, you can feel it. I mean, obviously, if you're numbing yourself with things, you won't be aware of what's going on. But and also your parents form a part of your identity. So when something is happening to a parent, it's happening to you as well on some level. So as you can see, I have like bags under my eyes. I haven't been sleeping. It's been extremely stressful, and I've been feeling very shaky in my sense of self, and the fear has been triggering, anyone who's on a mystical path or a spiritual path, or, any kind of path where you're working with the subtle energies to affect yourself and your reality. You do, and it's actually healthy to come up against doubt and issues that cause fear, that what you're doing is just imaginary. There's a lot of people who will tell you that. I've had, thankfully, enough direct experience to know that what I'm doing is actually affecting change, and I'm very blessed and lucky to have had miraculous events happen in my environment, and not just with me there, with other people present, to know that I'm not imagining things. And I will do a demo for you where I'm going to call in some Lyrian energy. So that's like the feline intelligence, and that can be seen through different gods and goddesses like Sekhmet, and through the Leo archetype, which is I'm a Leo. So I'm going to show you when I work with that. And sometimes when I do energy work like with that, certain things happen with like light and stuff. I don't know if the observer effect of me filming it will change that, but I will try show you some of that stuff, and show you how you can call in and channel and invoke and evoke different energies through yourself and from the atmosphere and from different archetypes, to then channel towards any fears that you have within yourself, any situations that are creating chaos, any issues with faith and doubt that can seriously affect you. But all I'm going to say right now, for those of you who are struggling with fear that, stepping off the trodden path and trying to affect reality differently by working on your energetic field might be very reckless and cause you to be in a dire situation when it comes to survival or resources. Or anyone who has fear around anything like, relationships or global events or weather or the powers that be, or just, failing and being a laughing stock or rejection. People have a lot of fears around different things. I want to share with you what happened when I sat all day. It looked like I was doing nothing, but I was working on myself internally. After I did that, So I spent the whole day. I feel very delicate. I feel a bit depleted. It took a lot from me, and I'm also not sleeping very well. During the night, my little sister in America said that she just happened to randomly find an old letter that was sent in 2022 to her address, addressed to my father. Now, my sister's very tidy and she doesn't keep clutter around. So for her to find something like that is pretty unusual. And in the letter, it talked about my father's health insurance that's still active in America, because he worked for about 10 years in America, and he's now at that age where, and he has Social Security, and so she called them up and she asked them, is it still active? And they said yes. And then she asked if it covers emergencies in other countries, and they said yes, it does. He has to first pay, but then they'll reimburse, and up to 90 days of care. So our real concern was, he's had this accident, he's fallen, he's broken bones, he's elderly, he's 86, he's got hospital delirium, he already has some dementia, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't have health insurance in Poland. It's going to be double the amount. And then if there needs to be rehabilitation, like, how can we afford to get him into somewhere where they can rehabilitate him properly so he can walk again, especially when he doesn't know what's going on and he's a bit difficult to handle and he has paranoia from his childhood war traumas and he doesn't trust anyone that's coming near him. But we found that. So now we have a way to cover the expenses. And then my sister and I were able to get hold of my aunt, who is going to the hospital tomorrow and is going to be able to get a doctor to actually talk to us and tell us what's going on. And so all of these things happened just through this unusual event of finding a letter from, years ago in my sister's house that she was going to work that day. My sister has a really rigorous schedule. She's doing her registration for more years than she should be doing. So it usually goes 7 years to be a surgeon, or maybe a bit more. She's had to redo a lot of things. So she's in the middle of that. Night shifts. She's exhausted. She just goes to work. She doesn't even have time for anything, but she was going to work. She got to the car. She couldn't find the key to her car. So she couldn't go to work. And then she suddenly had this feeling, do not go to work today. And that's when she went into her house, found this letter unexpectedly. She's in America, so she could call them. And then all of this happened. So I'm just giving this as an example of how powerful it is. Instead of when a crisis happens, running around like, I need to get there, I need to do this, and pushing yourself past your boundaries, getting super anxious, to just sit in stillness and feel the fear and feel how delicate and weak and vulnerable and insecure and incapable and everything that comes up, and just breathe into it, breathe golden light into it. If you know breath work, that's incredible. If you know how to breathe into a still point where you're pulling the chi and prana into the area where you're holding that toxic energy or that blocked energy, how powerfully important that will be in setting up your field to connect to events or whoever's connected to your field, whether it be your blood relatives, or affecting them and the events to bring a harmonious outcome. So now, things are progressing and we're figuring out that there's hope, and then we need to talk to the doctor, and then we'll figure out where we need to get there, and then we need to figure out how to bring the funds in, and I'm just going to keep doing that. And it takes a lot, and it's you don't see results immediately. So this is why I'm sharing this with you, because I know a lot of spiritual teachers or spiritual practitioners talk about things, even with authority, and you can feel from the resonance there may be truth, but you don't get to often see it being played out. And look, here, I don't know how this is going to end up. I could just, be a laughing stock. You guys watch this and then it turns out a huge catastrophe and everything falls apart. This is pretty vulnerable because I don't know how this is going to turn out. But I have my faith. I have my experience with how my energetic work has helped me survive in this world on my own, this very open, delicate, person that I am, that my whole life, partners and parents didn't think that I could do anything on my own. Because I'm so in the feeling of the energies, and there is a messaging out there that if you're sensitive, you're incapable in the Western world, So with fear, know that anytime you're going to do something big and new, you're going to face the unknown. And the unknown evokes fear in others. It's a normal response to the unknown to go into fear. And then fear can trigger a whole host of coping mechanisms that can... sorry, mosquitoes biting on me. And I'm so allergic to the mosquitoes in this country that it forms like a blister when they bite me. So I really need to keep them away. It really hurts. So... if there is no fear, then you're not really doing it. And then, as I said, when you are amplifying your field through the work that you're doing, breath work, through coherence work, through putting your attention on the things that activate you and magnetize you, and that's different for everyone, your field will get more charged, and that charge will bump up against things that are not in resonance with it and create a bit of chaos and disruption there. And that can create, chaos and accidents and things like this. And then when you jump, there's this euphoric thing. And then you land, and then there's going to be, you will be coherent. It'll be a strange experience because you'll feel so coherent and you'll feel so aligned and you'll feel so ecstatic that you've done this. But then you'll see that there still might be chaos, and you might be tripping and dropping things, or an accident can happen. This is happening to me where I've just done a quantum jump and I was just about to do another one. So I'm in between jumps. So I'm getting the both beginning and after effects of it. And then, the fear will come. When there's change, there's fear. And as you get older, change is scarier to people. Children can handle change a lot better. They're much more malleable. That's why I really emphasize the importance of coming back to innocence. If you're going to be doing this big energy work, this big field work, this big quantum timeline jumping work, it's very, very important to come back into innocence, because that is a state where you can handle huge shifts and changes and unexpected things with a lot more grace. And as I said before, heart-brain coherence is how you do it. You can't actually do this if you don't have heart-brain coherence. What that means is that your thoughts are aligned with your heart. And eventually you'll get to the point where you'll realize it's not actually about the actual thought or the word or the narrative. It's about the resonance, the feeling that you're feeling in your heart, and how open your heart is when you focus on the area that you're going. And on top of it, I have to share with you, sorry, this is going a bit longer than 20 minutes, which is how I like to keep it. But when you become quantum, we're just going to use the new language around it, because the old languages scare some people, or they don't even know what they are. But when you become quantum, which is when you become charged and activated, and you're running a lot more energy and you're magnetizing things, your energy can open up portals and can affect technology in ways where unusual events can happen. Usually at the beginning, it starts with flashes of lights around you that you and other people can see, or technology being used by your field as if it was programmed to do something. So that can create fear too, is what I'm saying. Some people, when that happens, they're like, yeah, look at all these strange events. Reality is not what I thought. This is exciting. Some people, when that happens, they're like, oh my God, what's going on? What's around me? who's controlling my technology. They don't realize that it's their energy. They can go into fear, because when unusual things happen or when miracles happen, sometimes things go into fear. One of the beautiful channelers that I follow, he does activations that are so huge that a lot of people who are going through his activations, they fear a lot. They feel a lot of fear because their being knows that they're jumping into a whole new way of perceiving reality, and change and the unknown in most humans evokes fear. So fear is going to be part of this journey. And if it isn't, you're either like way enlightened and you already know everything I'm saying and you don't even need to listen to anything I'm saying, or you are, suppressing something, or you're blocking something, or maybe you're just doing really small little jumps. If you get to a point where you expect the fear, and then the fear can be exhilarating. So the fear can go from fear to nervousness to butterflies. It's the same energy, it's just how you're interacting with it. Anyway, so I really thought it important to share with you how fear is a part of huge change and quantum jumping, and seeing yourself and reality in new ways, and developing your extrasensory abilities, or having different things happen in your environment. It's a part of it, and to expect it and to start cultivating a new relationship with it by being super present with it. And if that means just taking a few hours out the day to just sit and feel it and breathe into it, you will probably have absolutely no idea what you're doing. That's what I have to emphasize. When you're doing these things, you don't feel like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. Like when there's fear present, because it has the element of the unknown, you will feel like, am I doing this right? Like, am I even doing anything? Like, what am I doing? This is probably pointless. Let me just go grab a bag of chips and watch Netflix, or drink a beer, or just, numb it out. You will feel like you don't know what you're doing, but you're doing it. If you're really dealing with the fear of quantum jumps, there will be an element of feeling the unknown, feeling uncertain. But then you will see very shortly, if you really sit with it, that there will be things change the next day or the day after. So that's where I'm at with my journey. We've had some beautiful, really unusual, unexpected things happen that helped us, because we're multinational, my family. Whenever you move, you lose paperwork, you lose memory of how to deal with certain systems and healthcares. It's really hard. Some people look and go, oh, what a magical, wonderful life to have lived on so many continents. Yeah, definitely there's beautiful things about it. But also it's, when it comes to life admin and following all the systems and jumping through all the hoops, it can be very chaotic and you can lose really important things. And obviously my dad lost all information about his insurance coverage in America, and he hasn't been coherent enough to set it up in Poland. And then this happened. So thank God for this unusual letter that just showed up from, years ago in my sister's house, when suddenly she couldn't find her keys and went home, and then just got the strong guidance to stay home and figure out something to do with my dad. So thank you, Spirit. Thank you, Universe. Thank you, my beautiful teams that work with me, the Elohim, the Lyrian, the Arcturian, the Pleiadian, my ancestors, all the beautiful elementals and animal spirits and ancestral spirits on this beautiful Waibul, Bundjalung country, and here in Australia, and all my ancestors and elements that work with me from my home country, Africa, and from my, blood lineage country, Eastern Europe, and the time that I spent in America. Thank you to all of you who are supporting in this time, because everything's holographic. And this, to some people's eyes, may just look like an event where an elderly person had an accident and is caught up and the family scrambling. But everything's holographic. So the thing that we're dealing with is a reflection of some sort of event that's happening in the world that's creating a lot of fear and uncertainty and destabilization. So as we deal with our own things, we're actually dealing with collectively the things that are fractally, holographically happening within the world. And that's why it's also so important to stay mindful and deal with them in the most evolved way that you know. So yes, that's what I wanted to share. I hope this is helpful to someone. I'm so grateful for anyone who's watching and anyone who's even resonating with this, because if you are doing this work and you're resonating with this, you're making my work easier. You're amplifying my way of existing in the world and that of others who are working with timeline jumping and quantum jumping and with resonance and frequency. So thank you so much. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for anyone who is doing any heart-brain coherence work, any timeline jumping work, any work on setting their frequency or exploring any of this. It is immeasurably important and influential on the world right now, on my life, on our collective's life. So thank you. Thank you for watching. And I'll be in touch again next time when I've had a bit of rest and there's been some more movement. Bye for now.